Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Ite Namani.
So in Bombay, it was a very sad day one day, and that was on the 28th of September 1977. I got a phone call from Giriraj Swami, and that was at about 4:30 in the morning. And the most sad thing I heard from Giriraj Maharaj, he was crying on the phone, and he said, I want you to bring your big, in those days I had a big Dodge car. It was one of those huge cars, and the Americans used to make, where even you could sleep at the back. And he said, Prabhupada wants to leave his body. And I said, what? I never heard anybody say that somebody wants to leave his body. It sounded more like, he wanted to commit suicide or something. I said, what do you mean Prabhupada wants to leave his body? Where does he want to leave his body? He said he wants to go to Vrindavan, and he's leaving his body. He's going away. And we have to drop him at the station. But his body, because he hadn't eaten for nearly 6 months, he lived only on juice and charanamrit. So his body had depleted. There were hardly any muscles, and the bones and these veins were pressing, and it was very painful. So here was a person whom I had fought, and I had argued with. He was like a lion. He was a very, very fine debater. He could defeat anyone on the matter of philosophy. And then suddenly when I saw Prabhupada that morning, I saw that he was very, very thin, and it's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he had withdrawn himself, like a tortoise withdraws himself. So this morning, that's 28th September 1977, Srila Prabhupada decided to leave, and so for the first time I cleaned my car, because I didn't want Prabhupada to sleep in an unclean car. My wife arranged a nice silk bedding, and we had flowers and incenses. I drove to the temple, and there several things happened. Number one, when Prabhupada was brought down from his quarters, it was in like a basket, a big basket, and reminded me of stories like Moses or Karna. They were brought in baskets and left in the river or something. And I could see, like, there were devotees crying, and they were all devastated is the only word I can say. Spiritually, they were very much feeling intensely separation which was going to take place from Prabhupada. And I was supposed to drive, and I felt like a cruel, a real cruel guy, taking away Prabhupada away from the devotees. But that was my duty, I had to do that. So I was in the front driving. Next to me was Brahmananda Swami. He was quite big. And next to him was Tamal Krishna Swami, who was Prabhupada's last secretary. And finally it was Giriraj Maharaj. 4 of us, it was such a huge big car, 4 people could sit in the front. There were no bucket seats in those days. And there was, steering and the stick shift up in the steering wheel. And Prabhupada was resting at the back fully, and Upendra was his last servant. He was sitting down on the floor level of the car, and Prabhupada's luggage was behind. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, like a school teacher, told me, drive very slowly. Don't drive fast, because in the Bombay roads there are potholes, and Prabhupada will be very uncomfortable. So I said, fine. So I just asked them, we are going to Bombay Central Station, and which train are we going to catch? Prabhupada's taking the Mathura Express. He was supposed to go to Vrindavan. So now, mind you, this was from 4:30 and till 8 o'clock I had not had any water or anything, and then 9 o'clock, and then this was quite hot. Prabhupada was in the car. We were driving very slowly. Upendra from the back told me, Prabhupada wants you to drive faster. So I said, okay, if Prabhupada wants me to drive faster, I'll drive fast. I had been a rally driver when I was young, and I could drive real fast. So I just picked up the speed. And in those days, these were huge, big cars with big guzzlers, gas guzzlers. They could just move. The moment I pressed the accelerator, Tamal Krishna Maharaj got very upset. He said, I told you to go slow. What are you doing? So I said, well, I was just told by Upendra at the back that Prabhupada wants me to drive faster. So no, go slow. So I slowed down again. True enough, within a minute, Upendra was again telling me, Prabhupada had said, go faster. Now, why aren't you going faster? Now, I was getting, so I said, the real person I have to serve is Prabhupada, let me drive faster. And I said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you sort this out with Upendra and allow me to drive. So we reached, what we thought was, we reached too early to the Bombay Central Station. So myself and Ram Tulsi, another devotee there, we went to the station master to get the wheelchair for Prabhupada to transport him from my car to the railway in his special cabin. So I just, by my usual style, I asked the station master, this Mathura Express is going at 11 o'clock? He said, didn't you read today's newspaper? It's 10:30. The timing has just got changed today. And I looked at my watch and I said, there are 5 minutes left. The train's going to go in 5 minutes. Ram Tulsi and I ran with the wheelchair. And I told that station master, I'll pay you anything, but stop that train. Don't start it till I tell you. And he said, what? I've never had such a request. I said, there's a big team coming and there's a very holy person. He's going to leave his body in Vrindavan and he has to be on that train. He said, leave his body? What do you mean? I said, just run with me. And so we were running. I was quite young then. I'm now 57, but at that time I was 37, 20 years ago, yes. So we put Prabhupada in there. Oh, I told Giriraj Maharaj, you guys goofed. It's, the train's going half an hour early today. He says, no, it's there in the timetable. I said, whatever is in the paper, that doesn't matter. The station master is going to blow his whistle and the train's going to go. So we better take Prabhupada with us. So we ran. Some of the devotees got the thing ready for Prabhupada in his special cabin, which was non-air conditioned. Should have been air conditioned cabin, but for some reason they booked non-air conditioned. And then we took Prabhupada, and just a few minutes before the train was about to leave, he was comfortably sleeping in his compartment. Now, mind you, this was already nearly 10:30 and I was so thirsty. So I'd just gone to pick up a soda bottle from the stand at the railway. And Prabhupada's servant Upendra says, Prabhupada's calling you inside. So I just left that soda bottle and I went in the cabin, wondering why is Prabhupada calling me. And Prabhupada said, come closer. So I went very close to him and he said, I want to thank you for driving me. And it was very touching because he was in so much pain. He was just about to give up his body. I had done nothing much except this. So right there in the train in front of everyone, I just offered my obeisances, caught Prabhupada's lotus feet. Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others, don't touch his feet. I said, no, this is it. This is the last moment I'll ever get. And I said, Prabhupada, I surrender to you. You are my spiritual master. And he put his hand in my hair and blessed me. He actually put his He got up with little pressure on his elbow and he was smiling sweetly. The train started. And some of the devotees said, look, the train started and you better jump off, otherwise the next station is, quite far away. Reluctantly, I jumped off the train, the moving train, and I kept watching the train till the last bogie had left. And I wasn't thirsty anymore and I couldn't care for the bottle. Then when I got into the car, with tears in my eyes, lo and behold, there was Prabhupada's garland on the steering wheel. He'd not forgotten.
There were a few conversations going on at that time that sort of all converged and expressed this thinking in Prabhupada about Gita Nagari. In one conversation, it happened downstairs in his house in Vrindavan. He was talking about his impending death. And he said, I have no lamentation, in the context of his impending demise, so to speak. I have no lamentation. These are words he would use, death, demise, I'm just paraphrasing him. And naturally he had no lamentation, sojati, nakanchati. But then he paused after saying, I have no lamentation about my impending death. He said, no, I have a lamentation. And one of us asked, not me, but one of us in the group, 3-4 people were there, you mean because you have not finished Srimad Bhagavatam? Srila Prabhupada said, no, that I have not established varnashram. He said, 50% of my work is incomplete because I have not established varnashram. Now these two statements I heard in my own ears in Vrindavan. Then this thought kept coming up, what to do about this 50% of his incompleted work. It was in his mind. So he said on the roof on another conversation that I want to establish varnashram. And I believe I asked him, how will you do that? It may have been Tamal Krishna, it may have been someone else, but it represented what we were all thinking. So I had the impression that I asked him. That may not be hagiographically perfect, but I was certainly in that questioning mood as well. How will you do it? We asked him. And he said, I will go to Gita Nagari, I will sit down, and I will teach you how to live off the land. As simple as that.
So when Prabhupada was leaving his body, and he wanted to go, to Gita Nagari, and help us in knowing how to do Varnashram Dharma. He stopped in England. By that time I was in Eastern Europe, and we had heard that Prabhupada was coming. So we dropped everything and we came to to the manor. So when Srila Prabhupada heard that I was around, he immediately told devotees to call for me. And by that time Prabhupada had practically stopped all bodily functions, and devotees were carrying him in the palanquin to have darshan. So when I came in, and it was, there was one devotee, there was Krishna Kshetra, and a devotee, he left his body, I think his name was Dwarkadish. He used to work in Hungary and Poland and those places. So we were all together, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. So Tamal had already written me many wonderful letters telling me how that I should continue sending these letters to Prabhupada as he's sick, is giving him new life. He was probably so happy to hear about the preaching, how his books were going into so many different places. And so So I was writing reports about every 2 weeks. And I would be sending detailed reports. Who got the books, what was said, what was done. And Tamar would tell us how Prabhupada would hear this after taking lunch. And that after being garlanded and put chandan on him, and he would sit back and Tamar would tell me he would close his eyes and he would swoon, and etc. So Tamar was eager for me to come in, for Prabhupada to see me. So an interesting thing happened. I came in, I sat before Prabhupada's desk. And Prabhupada his voice was so weak. So he would call me, he would motion over to come closer. So then I came a little closer. And then he motioned for me to come around the desk. And then when I came around, Prabhupada started rubbing my head. And then he started like crying, you know. And then he embraced me. And then he said something which I didn't quite understand. But then what he said later, he says, your life is successful. And then I said, Prabhupada, we're only doing things because you are forcing us. Otherwise, how could we do anything? And then his voice became very strong, even though he was so weak. His body was so weak. He says, yes, and that is the parampara. My guru has forced me, and I am forcing you. And that is how things are going on. And it was so amazing. It was the most amazing experience I ever had with Srila Prabhupada. I mean, I couldn't appreciate it. And the next thing that happened shows you how I didn't appreciate it. Because it just came upon me, you know, it was so fast. And Prabhupada was like so weak, but at the same time, he was so strong and giving so much love. So the next day, now this was the very last time I saw Prabhupada. The next day, Tamal wanted me to experience what Prabhupada's mood was when he would read these reports. So he wanted me to physically come in and to read a report to Srila Prabhupada. Because he would write me these letters saying, how Prabhupada says, your work, he would give comments after, Tamal would read to him, and then Prabhupada would give some comments, and then Tamal would send me the comments. And they're some of the most amazing letters I've seen. And not because they're my letters, but they're some of the most amazing letters. So Tamal wanted me to experience what he was experiencing from Prabhupada. It's like Satyananda once told me, Sadananda. He had told me how once he was in the room when Prabhupada got a letter when I was in the communist countries. And Prabhupada didn't start speaking afterwards. He said, Prabhupada said, so he did not know the language. They do not know his language. He does not know their language. But the books are going out. He is a black man, a different race, and the books are going. He says, and the books are going, and he says, and Prabhupada went into like a trance. He says, the books are going, and he says, Prabhupada just went out like that. And so these are the kind of things that were going on. So Tamal wanted me to experience something of what they were experiencing when Prabhupada would read the letters. So now, the day before, Prabhupada has embraced me and told me my life was successful. And 4 to 5 of the devotees were in the room. So now I'm going around kind of puffed up, you know. Prabhupada has embraced me, you know. And everybody was saying, you know, people knew me then as Ganesham. So everyone was saying, those who knew that, oh, Ganesham was embraced by Prabhupada, this and that. So I was feeling cocky, you know. Prabhupada embraced me. So the next day I came in, reading my report. And the report, I think, was from our activities in Eastern Europe. And I started reading about the events of how the books had gotten out, this professor had taken, this library had accepted, this museum had accepted. And Prabhupada at one point stopped me. And he said, it is by Krishna's mercy, very piercing. He was chastising me that I was accepting, one, that I deserved his darshan, that I was feeling proud of what I had received. You know, he told me some other things in that same session about the communists, if they don't take the Krishna consciousness, they will have no grain, there will be many problems. But this one, he tuned into me and said like this. It was the very last words that Prabhupada had ever said to me, the very last time I saw him. And it just lived with me to realize that we must always remind ourselves that anything that we're able to do is by the mercy of Guru and the mercy of Krishna. So here, the best time I had with Prabhupada, the most amazing experience was the day before, and the most devastating experience was the last one of this serious chastisement.
Well, Srila Prabhupada was, to our apparent limited vision, his health was deteriorating, and he requested that I come to India, to Vrindavan, to see him. So I had just got married, and my wife was pregnant with my first son. So I couldn't leave, and we were living in a very remote part of Hawaii. So I couldn't leave at that particular moment. But I promised that as soon as my wife had her baby, then I would come. So time passed after my son arrived, and Shri Kirti came over to Maui from Oahu, and we flew off to India together. So at that time I wasn't living at a temple, so I let my hair grow a little bit longer than I should have. And when we arrived in Delhi, I thought, well, I can't go to see Srila Prabhupada like that, so we shaved up. And I had this big long sika. And Srila Prabhupada, when I walked in the room, it was a very sober mood, dark, and everything was subdued, and people were kind of morose, not making too much sound and everything. So I walked into Srila Prabhupada's room, and they said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, Madhavisa has arrived. So Prabhupada sat up in his bed, and I paid my obeisances, and Prabhupada, first thing he said, whoa, look at Madhavisa. He is maintaining such a nice sika. And he chuckled like that, knowing that, I hadn't maintained such a nice sika. I just had shaved up in Delhi train station. And the second thing he said, where is your wife? See, I had left Srila Prabhupada, I was a sannyasi, and then I had left and got married and everything like that. So that's not particularly the way you should do it. But Srila Prabhupada, he just shrugged that off. It was like immaterial to him. He wanted to know where my wife was. Not that, why have you got married? Why have you done this? He wanted to know, where is she? And he was fully aware that I was married and I had a child and everything like that, and he wanted to see her. And I said, well, Srila Prabhupada, she just had her first baby and she really doesn't want to travel. And she said, that's right, she shouldn't travel. But she is feeling okay? And I said, yes, she's feeling good. And you had a son? And I said, yes, Prabhupada, I had a son. And I said, and I named him Abhay Charan. Is that all right? And he said, yes. He said, that is okay. You've named him after your spiritual master. And then he went on to explain the famous purport that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the elephant and the crocodile. That the elephant is very mighty and very strong, but when he enters into the water, he becomes victimized by the crocodile because he's not in his proper atmosphere. If he's on the dry land, he can annihilate, he can crush the crocodile. But because he's in the water, he's at the mercy of the crocodile. So he said, similarly, we may be situated in the wrong atmosphere for executing Krishna consciousness. We must put ourselves in the right atmosphere, and then we can execute our Krishna consciousness and with all strength and vigor. So he said, it doesn't make any difference. You are a sannyasi, now you're a householder. That doesn't make any difference. The proper thing is just to go on with your Krishna consciousness, execute it. If you can't execute it, if you're becoming weak by artificially embracing a sannyas order, and you must take another order to become strong again, that is all right. But the most important thing is don't leave the association of the devotees, and continue on with your Krishna consciousness. And he made me feel so good.
When Prabhupada asked me about the Bhagavatam, called me, he was getting a massage, and called me up and asked me, he said, so in my absence, you can complete the Srimad Bhagavatam. I said, yes, Prabhupada, I try to do that. Yes. I said, okay, good. And I said, and if I have questions, I could ask Sridhar Maharaj. He said, yes. He said, he is the man to, you can ask questions. Yes, that's okay. That's good. I wasn't actually around, I mean, I was right there, but I wasn't around Prabhupada too much in the final weeks, actually, because for the final part of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada asked me to do the translation. So I was actually translating the verses for the final volume, and that took all my time. Because what I would do is I'd do the transliteration, I read all the commentaries, I'd translate the verse and do the synonyms, and then I would bring it down to him and read it to him. And then we'd hold the microphone to his lips and he would dictate the purport for that last volume. So that kept me pretty much occupied because I would have to have everything ready to read, and it would take a lot to make sure that it was right. So I had to go down and read it, and I'd go right back up to the room and work on the next verses, because if he could, anytime Prabhupada was ready to do more, I had to be ready. I mean, there was no saying, well, I'm not ready. You know, that was it. That's Bhagavatam that people wouldn't have. So for the last weeks, that's basically what I was doing. So I was right there. I was right in the next in the compound, but I was always translating, as fast as I could.
So I was reading one letter from our godbrother Siddha Swarup. Now at that time, historically, Siddha Swarup had been a bit of a iconoclast in ISKCON. He was apart from the most of his godbrothers. He had his own unique style and perspective on things. And in that exact time, he had really left again. He had come in and then left again and gone back to his own establishment in Hawaii. But of course, he was a devotee of Prabhupada still. So he had written a get well card to Prabhupada, and I was reading it. Prabhupada was lying down, I was standing up, and the get well card said, Dear Srila Prabhupada, he said a variety of things. I'm praying for your health and this and that. But he came to one particular line where he said, I am a resident of Hawaii. And I hope that if you think of Hawaii sometime, you may also think of me. And I suddenly heard Prabhupada choke up and it burst out. I was looking at the card and I looked up at Prabhupada's face. And in that span of time, the tears had already come down, halfway down his cheeks. So I don't know if they sprayed out or what, or if they were already dripping. But they were clearly down at the level of his nose, the bottom of his nose. And he choked up and he said, I am always thinking of you. I can never forget. And this was indicative of the way he was at that time. Any nice thought could bring him to tears and to deep appreciation.
Someone brought ice cream from New Vrindavan to Prabhupada in Vrindavan, the final days. And Prabhupada took it right on a teaspoon and ate ice cream from New Vrindavan. They had dry ice that kept it cold. And they brought him a ring they had made. And as soon as we showed Prabhupada the ring, he said, so, where is the bride? He said, where is the bride?
Prabhupada's position, after you were with Prabhupada for a while, you got used to Prabhupada's physical condition that was so devastating when you first saw. So we would be around Prabhupada's bed, and then new devotees would come in, and as they first saw Srila Prabhupada, they'd start crying, and it would be so pathetic that we'd all start crying. The Swedish devotees crying when they first saw Srila Prabhupada. So we'd all started crying. And then Prabhupada said, at one point he says, "Why are you all crying?" So he said, "Srila Prabhupada, we're crying because you're so sick and we are afraid that you may leave." And Prabhupada said, "I will never leave you." He said, "I live forever in my books. I will never leave you. I'll live forever within my books, so there's no reason to cry." He said, "Old people die, that is natural." He said, "When a young person dies, that's some mistake, because young person should live to their old. When they're old, they should die. And that's, for me, it's natural. It's a natural thing, so don't cry." So then one devotee said, "But Srila Prabhupada, we're crying because we can't be without you. And when you leave, we won't know how to communicate with you." And Prabhupada said, "Oh, I will communicate with you through your heart." He said, "I will come to you in your dreams as Chaitya Guru. I will communicate with you through dreams," Prabhupada said, as Chaitya Guru. I also found that a little controversial because I thought my godbrothers wouldn't have approved, but Prabhupada had said it. Prabhupada said it right there, that he would communicate with us through dreams. So Prabhupada wanted to go to Govardhan. So he said, "I want to go to Govardhan," and everyone's saying, "Srila Prabhupada, we don't think this is a good idea, you know." And Prabhupada said, in this room it's like being killed by Ravana." He said, Marichi, he said, he was given the choice to be, if he didn't become a deer and go and tempt Ram away from Sita, Ravana would kill him. And if he became a deer, Ram would kill him. So he told Ravana, better to be killed by Ram. So better to be killed by Ram, better to go to Govardhan. If I stay in this room, it's like being killed by Ravana. So, but Prabhupada, you can't go. You know, the doctor said, "Prabhupada, you won't even make it to the gate. If we carry you, you won't even make to the gate." So there was a big discussion right around Prabhupada's bed, and Prabhupada said, "You have to do this outside. I cannot, you know, it's too exhausting to hear this going on." It went on for maybe 15 minutes discussion right in front of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "Go outside." So they went into Prabhupada's garden, and they had a big discussion. I was just talking to Bhartraj about this. Went on and on and on. It seemed, I only remember one person on Prabhupada's side and everybody against Prabhupada, and I was on the side against. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj seemed to be the one who was on the side not to take Prabhupada to Govardhan, and Hamsaduta was the only one, and Lokanath, who went to get the cart, were on Prabhupada's side to take him to Govardhan. So this went on and on and on until the cart came to the Krishna Balaram gate. Then we hear, "The cart's here. Now it's time to move Prabhupada from the bed to the cart." And it's night. It's getting dusk. I mean, not only are we going to put Prabhupada on the cart, which is probably going to kill him, but it's going to be at night. So it'd even be worse, you know. So Prabhupada would want to go. No one would see. It would be at night. He would go and he would leave his body somewhere, and, you know, this is what we feared. So we all went in, and myself included, we all went around Srila Prabhupada's bed and we said, "Srila Prabhupada, please don't make us put you on this cart." And Prabhupada said, he didn't say anything. And then we begged him, and we were almost crying. We were crying. And then Prabhupada said, "If it worries you so much, I don't need to go." And it's just like the whole anxiety level just went from a 50,000 to back to zero, you know. And then everyone just, it was just like, oh, now we can relax. And then people started moving out of Prabhupada's room, you know. And it seemed like most of the people were out of the room. There weren't many people in the room. But I was still there, and I don't think there were many other people in the room. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I'll tell you this. I worked with him after Srila Prabhupada left for 7 years. You know, Siddhanta, how much I worked with him, how close I was with him. And why I worked with him was because I was so impressed at the excellent service that he gave Srila Prabhupada. You know, if you had everyone, even people who didn't like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, they saw how he served Prabhupada, and we were impressed that no one could have served him like this. You know, so, but because Goswami Maharaj was also very intimate to Prabhupada, he got very fried at this situation. And he went up to Prabhupada and he said, you know, Prabhupada, we can't understand why you do this. Why you insist for us to take you to Govardhan. We get so upset, we so worked up, and we just get this cart and we bring it over here, and then we're so worried, we put you on the cart, you're going to die, we get flipped out, and we become more protective of you, even more than before, and I just can't take it, Prabhupada. Why you do this? And he almost screamed at Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, it's my duty. Goswami said, what? He said, it's my duty to make you love me more. And Goswami said, oh. He walked away. And I just remember Prabhupada saying that, to make you love me more. And whatever love I had for Prabhupada just multiplied like 1,000 times. You know, he probably just made you love him so much. If you were with Prabhupada, whatever love you had for Prabhupada, he just increased it, and you just become more and more loving with him. His duty, he said, was to make us love him more. What wonderful duty. We already love Prabhupada, but he's getting us to love him more.
This is Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada departed from Vrindavan on November 14th, 1977. This was approximately November 8th or November 10th. So I came to Vrindavan. I was in the Hyderabad farm, which was very important to Srila Prabhupada, so I was staying there. But I heard that Srila Prabhupada was not feeling well and that it was a chance he might leave the world, so I went to see him. And came there, and I tried to be as inconspicuous as possible, not to disrupt the mood. The room was packed with devotees. Everyone was very quiet, and I could see Prabhupada's condition, and I was told about it. He really hadn't eaten for almost 6 months. It's a very important thing to understand Prabhupada's condition. He was lying in bed, emaciated, weighing maybe 70 pounds, if that much, drinking 1 spoon, 2 spoons of water, maybe eating a little bit. And as I was sitting there in the back, just listening to what was going on, and there was some kirtan. Kirtananda had come in and was offering Srila Prabhupada some strawberries, probably from New Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada asked, when Kirtananda offered him the strawberry, he says, what is the value of strawberries? And everyone was silent. No one knew what to say. So then several devotees kept on poking me. I'm kind of known as the walking encyclopedia. I like to study things. So they kept on poking me to say something. So I didn't want to intrude on Prabhupada. I was remaining quiet. But I spoke. I said, Srila Prabhupada, the value of strawberries is that they're very high in fructose, and that provides immediate energy. Because I knew Prabhupada wasn't so much into vitamins. So I talked about the value. Prabhupada's very pragmatic. Even lying on his departure bed, not eating, he's concerned what would be the value of eating it. He's a pragmatic person. So the devotee next to him says, Tejas says that it, and he repeated it. And Prabhupada said, oh, Tejas is here. And Prabhupada said, how is the Hyderabad farm? So he's so cognizant, always. I mean, even this state. And so I gave him a report that we're growing corn, rice, mung beans, like that. And as soon as I said corn, Prabhupada said, oh. He says, corn. You can grind the corn, and then there are big pieces, which you can boil with water, cook with water, like rice, it's called bhat. And the other, the fine powder, you make that together like a roti, and you cook that on the pan, the cooking pan. And he says, and the villagers, they very much like this. So here he was, from a physical point of view, starving. And what was he thinking? He was just thinking how we could make this corn in the most delicious way to make the villagers happy when they take prasadam. This is a person of unlimited compassion.
I was amazed at Srila Prabhupada's being able to transcend his bodily condition. For example, I was there when, right near the end, and the Kaviraj, who they had flown up from Calcutta, one of the best. Prabhupada had a dream about this Kaviraj. And he was a really excellent Kaviraj. You could see he was dhira, he was a sober practitioner, very Brahminical like that, and very, very reverential to Prabhupada. And he was from the Sri Sampradaya, big white and red tilak. And one day he told, I got this second hand, from perhaps Harisori, but he said, you know, I had doubt that your Guru Maharaj was actually a Paramaham saint. But he said, I have assisted, thousands of people dying. And usually in this condition, when there's no more muscle and fat to cushion the nerves from being pressed against the bone, he said, people are in such agony that I have to administer morphine. And he says, your Guru Maharaj never manifests the slightest expression of pain.
This was in Vrindavan, the end of October, early November 1977. Prabhupada was preparing to leave. And I was sitting on the side of his bed, massaging his arms. Other devotees were massaging his head and feet. And at one point, his body started going through some contortions that seemed like he was in great pain. So I asked Prabhupada, are you in pain, Prabhupada? If he answered yes, then I would try to do something. He looked at me like, what kind of a question is that? He said, no. So Prabhupada was not affected.
In the final days, which was the most poignant, we were there in Vrindavan and having like the vigil, the kirtan, and taking turns chanting softly with the little symbols. And at a certain point, I got sick. I got this fever. I don't know what it was. I just one day just walked back to my room and just collapsed right in my room, and just fever. And so I was sick for a few days, and anyway, it took me about a week or so to recover, and then I was able to, when I got better, then I was able to again go and see Prabhupada. So when I came there, because Prabhupada was just lying on his bed, and he was conversing with his servants, and sometimes he would ask who was having the kirtan. And so that particular day he asked, and they said, they mentioned my name, and then Prabhupada said, "Oh, Brahmananda," and then he made the call, and then I came forward, and so he said, you were ill, you were not feeling well. I mean, here's Prabhupada, you know, just completely shriveled, and I mean, Prabhupada was not maybe feeling. I mean, when Prabhupada was concerned, I'm not feeling well. I had just a little fever, and here's Prabhupada on his departure bed, and he said, "Oh, you were not." I mean, he with such concern, and really with love, and I just was totally affected by that. How Prabhupada could be thinking that I wasn't feeling well. So I think this is the thing that affected me most, how much Prabhupada loved us. But the thing is, we're not very lovable. And we all have defects and so on. But why did Prabhupada love us? And he loved us because he saw us as servants of Krishna. And he also even said that we were sent by his Guru Maharaj to help in his mission. But anyway, Prabhupada saw us as Krishna's servants, and his mission was to spread Krishna consciousness. So whatever we could do to assist and do something in this cause of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada very much appreciated.
I was also there when Prabhupada disappeared, left this world, and I'm sure you've probably heard plenty of stories from the devotees that were there. My own feeling at the time, it was just such a feeling of helplessness and desperation, because, in fact, it was like that a lot during the last couple of months, because it just felt like it was inevitable, but you couldn't stand the thought that he wasn't going to be with us. And on that last day, everyone was chanting. At first there was a kind of a back and forth, and then everybody began chanting together in the last moments. And again, it's not something you can empirically establish, but it felt like there were many more people in that room than were actually there. It felt like there was a heavenly chorus. It felt like there must be so many other personalities from other places who were present. And there was this tremendous feeling. I'm not trying to make light of it. It was like a Technicolor finish. You know, like when you have this spectacular ending to a movie or something. It was like this glorious chanting was going on, and Prabhupada was, with his last breath, was Hare Krishna, you know, uttering the syllables Hare Krishna, and you could almost feel the ascent. You know, it was like you sensed, okay, he's ascending now, he's with Krishna. And the emotions were so intense in the room, and some devotees became completely hysterical, crying. One devotee threw himself on the floor and just weeping, he couldn't control himself. Other people were completely stricken or stoic, or there were so many different kinds of reactions. But it was a very intense moment. But there was nothing inauspicious about it. It was completely auspicious. Sometimes they describe the sentiments of the gopis as being simultaneous nectar and poison. It was kind of like that. It was ecstatic because you knew that Prabhupada had perfectly executed the mission of human life and was back to Godhead. And but for us, it was loss. Irretrievable and irreplaceable loss. So it was a very difficult period.
After Prabhupada had left, devotees were collecting memories of Srila Prabhupada, and no one had gone to see his godbrother, Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor. So I decided to go to see Dr. Kapoor when I was in Vrindavan one time and ask him about his memories of Srila Prabhupada. And he gave me a very beautiful story. And he was 13 years younger than Prabhupada, but he used to come all the time to the pharmacy and to ask questions, discuss Krishna Katha like that, and they became really close. So one day when he came, Prabhupada handed him a vial. Said, here, take this vial, this tonic. This would be very good for your health. So Dr. Kapoor said, yes, I will take this, thank you very much. But why you don't give me the tonic that you're taking? So Prabhupada said, well, what tonic is that? He said, you know, the tonic of Krishna Prem. Prabhupada laughed. He said, well, I don't have that tonic, but I do know the formula. And Dr. Kapoor said, well, if it's not a secret, perhaps you can share it with me. He said, yes, I can share it with you. It is not a secret. The formula is Trinadapi Sunichena Taroriva Sahishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtanaya Siddhahari, and I shall spread it the whole world over. So Trinadapi Sunichena, more humble than the grass. Taroriva Sahishnana, more tolerant than the tree. Amanina Manadena, not desiring any respect for myself, but desiring to give all respect to others. Kirtaniya Siddhahari, in such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So at the time, Dr. Kapoor thought he was just making a casual pronouncement. But he told me, now that I look back over the years, I realized that even at that time, he had a plan like that. He was thinking like that. I shall spread it the whole world over. So I was thinking how Prabhupada said this is the formula to get Krishna Prem. And Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of that verse. So I want to give some of Srila Prabhupada's pastimes to show how he embodied that verse. So, Trinadapi Sinechena, more humble than the grass. This is a pastime that Srila Prabhupada performed in New York in July 1972. It was just around it was actually the July 4th holiday weekend. And devotees had come from all over the East Coast, from as far south as Miami, as far north as Montreal and Toronto, as far west as Chicago and St. Louis. And there were thousands of devotees in the New York Temple. And then when Prabhupada was to leave, so many devotees drove him to the airport. And they went with him into the departure lounge. You could just see him to the last second. So the departure lounge was filled with devotees. Now the airport officials had a problem because there was no room for the passengers who were booked on the plane to come into the departure lounge. So one of the officials looked around and spotted Rabindra Sarup, who was kind of a tall person, and said and explained the situation to him and asked him if he could ask your people to kindly leave so that persons who are on the plane can come in to the departure lounge and to board their flight. So he said, okay. He could understood the situation and went and spoke to a couple of devotees, but no one was having any of that. I'm not leaving, no way. Then he realized that he's not going to get anywhere. Now Rupanuga had just taken sannyas in May of that year, so he was a new sannyasi and he was a GBC. So Rabindra approached Rupanuga and explained the situation to Rupanuga and asked him if he could take care of it. So Rupanuga immediately, okay, done. So he got up one of the chairs and he said, attention all devotees. We now have to leave the departure lounge to make room for the incoming passengers. So all devotees, please get up and leave the departure lounge. No one did anything. Everyone just sat there and looked at him, except for one person, Srila Prabhupada. He got up and started to walk out. And Rupanuga said, no, not you, Srila Prabhupada. He was so humble. When he heard that a devotee should get up and leave, he got up to leave. And no one else did. So this is the symptom of humility, more humble than the grass. He was the only humble Vaishnava in that assembly. Taroriva Sahishnuna, more tolerant than the tree. This pastime took place in 1975 when Prabhupada was going for the first time to South Africa after he had been in Kenya. And he was flying on the plane, and on that plane was the South African football team who had just played in Kenya. So they were a rowdy bunch, and they'd won the match, and they were kind of, happy and upbeat. So after the plane took off, the stewardesses came around, they were serving drinks, and these guys were taking their drinks and getting a little high and a little rowdy, lighting up cigarettes. Now, it's a non-smoking cabin that they were in. So Pusta Krishna, who was Prabhupada's secretary, was sitting next to Prabhupada, Pusta Krishna Maharaj at that time. He got a little disturbed. This is not very nice. Why Prabhupada should be subjected to this? So he pressed the call button to call for the stewardess. And she came and he explained very nicely, this is the non-smoking area, you know, and could you please ask them to extinguish their cigarettes? So she agreed. She asked these football players to extinguish their cigarettes, which they did do. Then she left. But after a few minutes, they lit up again because they were really drunk. So now, Pusta Krishna could see that he wasn't going to get anywhere with the stewardess. So he decided he was going to take matters into his own hands. So he got up and he was going to get heavy with these guys. And Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, where you were going?" She said, "Well, they're smoking, Srila Prabhupada." "Sit down." And then Srila Prabhupada looked him right in the eye and said, "What is the difference between us and them if we cannot tolerate?" So Prabhupada tolerated the cigarette smoke and the rowdiness and everything. He was undisturbed. And he said, what is the difference between us and them if we cannot tolerate? So the pure devotee, the Vaishnava, he exemplifies this. Tarori vasahishnira, more tolerant than the tree. And then amanina manadena, not desiring any respect for himself or any honor, but desiring to give all respect and honor to others. So pastime, this was just end of 1975 and 76. I think it was January 76. I had arrived in Bombay December 75. And at that time, the Bombay temple was just a hole in the ground with the foundation. And Prabhupada's rooms at that time was at the back of the property, which are now the BBT building. So Prabhupada had come early January 76, I believe, sometime in January. And he wanted to really get this project moving. So the next morning after breakfast prasadam, he had a big meeting in his rooms with all the people who were involved in doing this project, and the sannyasi, the GBC temple president, all the people, everybody. So they're in the room having this big important meeting. Then up the stairs comes the cleaning lady, a Bungi lady from the Bungi colony, not far from the temple. And she has her little balti, the wooden bucket, and her daru, the straw broom, because she comes up every day and cleans the rooms. So she comes up to the top of the landing, and the door is slightly ajar. So she looks through and she sees Prabhupada there speaking, and all, you know, all the devotees and the architects and the contractors and everything. So she can't go in, but she can't not do her service. She can't go down and forget about it because that 1 rupee feeds her children. She needs it, so she doesn't know what to do. So she's just standing there. Meanwhile, Prabhupada's speaking, and as he turns his head to the right, he sees through the door that's ajar, he sees the cleaning lady standing there. So immediately he stops the discussion. He says, now we have to stop. The cleaning lady has come. When it's her time to clean, then she's the authority here. Everyone has their area of authority. And when it's her time to clean, she's the authority. So we have to get up and leave. So they got up and leave. So the Jagat Guru recognized the authority of that cleaning lady. Amanina amanadena, giving all respect to others and not desiring any for himself. In this way, kirtaniya sadahari, one is able to chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, which we always saw. Srila Prabhupada always chanting the holy name of the Lord constantly. So here we see that Prabhupada was the embodiment, the personification of that verse, which he said many years back, he had explained to his godbrother that this was the formula to get Krishna praying. And he would spread it the whole world over, and he was the embodiment of that.
Krishna Kirtana Gana Natana Pano Je Anilo Premadana Karuna Prachu Jai Anilo